The Monhegan Museum of Art is once again this summer offering guided tours of the home and studio that Rockwell Kent built and painted in while he lived on the island. You can visit the museum's website to learn more. And Kent was also part of an art exhibition recently on the campus of Bowdoin College in Brunswick, Maine, that showcased the extraordinary works of some great artists who have painted Maine over the past 2 centuries, including Winslow Homer, Andrew Wyeth, and Rockwell Kent. Our special correspondent Doug Cook has more on that from Maine.
Not quite 300 miles east of Asgard Farm, where painter, printmaker, illustrator, and draftsman Rockwell Kent lived for much of his life, is the Bowdoin College Museum of Art along the coast of Maine. Inside, its exhibition At First Light, paying tribute to the artists who have contributed greatly to Maine's artistic heritage, with more than 100 works by more than 70 different artists, among them luminaries in the world of art, including Winslow Homer, Andrew Wyeth, and William Wegman, with Rockwell Kent's painting Maine Coast marking the entrance to the exhibition's largest gallery. Husband and wife team Frank Goodyear and Ann Collins Goodyear are the museum's co-directors and co-curated the exhibition.
We were very eager to bring his modernist vision into this exhibition. We were also interested in thinking about communities of artists that began to develop here in Maine in the first part of the 20th century. And one of the most important communities of modernist artists developed out on Monhegan. Rockwell Kent was a key member of that community.
Kent spent 2 blocks of time on Monhegan Island, first arriving in 1905 when he was 22.
That first period, 1905 to 1910, was a major prolific period. Some of his greatest paintings were done in that period.
Robert Stahl, former director of the James Fitzgerald Legacy, part of the Monhegan Museum of Art and History, showed us around the house Kent built during this time.
Starting in 1906, he had hired someone in April to build his house. April came and went, May came and went. By June, he lost patience, and he said out of anger was born a carpenter, and he did it himself.
The house is featured in the exhibition's companion book, At First Light, 2 Centuries of Maine Artists, Their Homes and Studios, as are images of works Kent painted during his first stretch of time on Monhegan. Aside from the prominent placement inside the exhibition, Kent enjoys another special connection here. The Bowdoin College Museum of Art gave Kent his first museum retrospective exhibition in 1969, just 2 years before his death. The museum has more than 100 works by Kent in its collection, including paintings, drawings, and prints. And behind the scenes in Frank Goodyear's office hangs a painting of Kent's Asgard Farm, where the artist lived from the 1920s until his death in 1971.
There's a particular light in Maine, and Kent captures it beautifully. I think there's a particular light in upstate New York, and I think that this wonderful canvas conveys something of that summer light.
Kent's second and final block of time on Monhegan Island began in 1948. It was during this time the artist began to draw attention for more than the works of art he created. July 1953 was an eventful time in Kent's life. The beginning of the month brought an appearance before the U.S. Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, chaired by anti-communist crusader Joseph McCarthy. In Washington, Kent refused to answer whether he had ever been a member of the Communist Party, and Kent was denied his request to read into the official Senate record a written statement he had prepared. Later, one newspaper did print it in its entirety. The very next week came the disappearance of Sally Moran, a New York socialite who once modeled for Kent. Kent and his wife had invited Moran to that island cottage he had built. During that stay, she left to take a walk and then seemed to have disappeared. 3 weeks later, fishermen found her body in the water 50 miles from shore. The headlines that surfaced suggested foul play. Though Kent had been in New York at the time, and although a grand jury ruled Sally Moran's death an accident, Robert Stahl says it was the sensationalism surrounding the episode that drove Kent never to return to Maine after that last visit to Monhegan in October 1953. Kent sold his house to fellow artist James Fitzgerald, and it's now owned by the Monhegan Museum. Another house that he had built for his mother is now owned by artist Jamie Wyeth. Kent created some of his greatest work in Maine. He painted Maine Coast in 1907, during that earlier, perhaps brighter period on Monhegan Island. It's a snapshot of tranquility and just one piece of Kent's enduring legacy. In Brunswick, Maine, Doug Cook for Mountain Lake Journal.